This is the High School Crossfire. Welcome back.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's always stated that you cannot swim in the pool of knowledge and you come out empty. Team Affirmative have proved the reverse. Let me show you this. My name is Okalebo Joe Caesar from the Team Negative. So the use of drugs for the medical purposes in India, it's there, right?
Yes.
But is drug possession decriminalized in India? You don't know. Do you know that sedative narcotics is a type of narcotics, not an example of narcotics? Still, you don't know?
Yes, it is.
It is. Okay, thank you. That's where she starts lying. Do you agree that drug possession and usage is dangerous to human health?
If restricted, it is not.
Thank you. Still, it's dangerous. Do you realize that Biden and Harris administration has implemented the harm reduction, but still there is an increase in drug-related deaths?
Pardon your question?
Actually, do you know about Biden and Harris administration?
I said pardon your first question so I can give you an answer.
You don't even know what the question is about. You can't answer it. Is decriminalization the same as legalization?
No, they are different.
Thank you. And you come here and you tell us you define decriminalization as legalization. That's a contradiction in their definitions. Thank you. In India, are they using harm reduction strategies?
Yes, they are.
Thank you. You didn't state that in your entire case, ladies and gentlemen. You say that drugs are used in India. I've finished that actually. Yeah, for medical intervention. Don't try. Give an example of medical interventions where drugs are used and it is not happening in Uganda.
Pardon?
Give an example of medical interventions happening in India where drugs are used and it's not happening in Uganda.
We have given that in our whole periodical report.
You only stated that there are drugs are used in India, but they didn't give any example of a medical intervention that where drugs are used in India and it's not happening in Uganda. Thank you. Do you agree that drug decriminalization will increase the number of drug addicts?
No, it will not.
Thank you. That's where she is again lying. So, do you realize that reducing toxins, thank you can get it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you've clearly seen from what they have presented to us, they actually gave us what they think is right, but actually not. So, they came and told us that they are going to use drugs in pharmaceuticals for medical production. But now, ladies and gentlemen, these narcotics, we asked them, do these narcotics have substitutes? They didn't tell us anything, ladies and gentlemen. But even if they didn't have substitutes, and these narcotics being used in the country without actually decriminalizing the drug possession, they are being used but without decriminalizing the drug possession. They talked of licensing pharmaceutical companies, but this is not an assurance that people won't actually suffer from the adverse effects of drug use. We agree to their definitions of narcotics, not because we actually didn't realize it's wrong, but because they gave no example of what they call, they didn't give any example of what they call narcotics. Perhaps they are taking paracetamol as a narcotic as well, and it is used in the medical sector. They told us that the problem at hand is health. They say the problem at hand is health. But how is good health a problem, ladies and gentlemen? Good health is not a problem at any point. They told us that, why do we go to India for medical intervention? The reason why you go to India is not because they are using narcotics. It's because they have better facilities and better specialists, ladies and gentlemen. Not the narcotics. Rule that out. Then they told us that we actually need to use these medicines to reduce the effects of HIV infections. But ladies and gentlemen, recently the AIDS Support Organization presented a report and they clearly say that the rate at which AIDS is actually affecting people in Uganda has reduced without decriminalizing the drugs that they actually want to actually do. They say that drugs are not going to be used by everyone, meaning even when they produce the medicines that they want to produce, not everyone will actually take those medicines, which means they're actually catering for a few people of the many who will actually, they are catering for a few people of the many who will be suffering from the diseases. A few people will actually take their drugs that are, their medicines that will be produced from the drugs, ladies and gentlemen. They say that with that, I lectured my case, and you've clearly seen that they have actually proved the reverse. They came out of the pool empty. Thank you.
My name is Desire Nankunda, and I'm the fourth negator of this resolution that clearly states that this House supports the decriminalization and possession and implementation of harmful reduction. I mean,
You're
sorry, I'm the fourth affirmer, please.
Thank you, negator.
So is India the country with the greatest and leading health sector in the world?
But it's not the one that's most affected by drug use, drug addiction, and it's not actually using the
this question requires a yes or no. Interpret my questions.
Pardon?
Next question. Did your first negator say that you agree with our definition of the resolution?
Of course we agreed because there were no examples to illustrate what you meant by your definitions.
And did your first negator say that there are other alternatives?
Of course he did, and he stated them clearly.
So are you aware that the Ministry of Health is aware of these other alternatives but is looking for the most efficient medical solution?
My friend, they are being actually used in the medical sector.
Okay. Would you borrow a leaf from someone who is better than you if it is relevant for your own development?
Someone taking dangerous measures, I can't take that leaf, even if it's a branch.
Okay. Do you agree that the World Health Organization is the body that provides adequate and trusted information concerning the health sector?
Of where?
Of the world.
Thank you. You actually stated your parameters as Uganda. However, Uganda is also part of the world. Guess what? All that information that was given.
Thank you. You're giving a lot of information and wasting my time. The next question. Can you get addicted to a drug that is given under strict prescription?
Your time is up for questions.
Okay. So, our dear panel of judges, we ask these people if India is the country the greatest and leading health sector, is the country the greatest and leading health sector in the world, and he clearly agrees. So we are looking at India, which is the best, has the best and leading health sector in the world, and we are looking at it already adopting the use of these narcotic drugs to create drugs that are helping in the treating and reducing of the diseases. So we are looking at it, having used this at its advantage, and we are also trying to borrow a leaf from India, because we are looking at our people having to travel to India, we are looking at our people having to suffer from diseases, but we are looking at this as a solution that could help our own sector if we go for it. And then we asked them, did they agree with our vision? The fact that they agreed with our resolution means that they agreed with our whole entire case. And I asked them, did they say that there are other alternatives? And they said they did. And we are telling them that the Ministry of Health cares about the health of other people. So if it does, it will always look for that alternative that is the most efficient. And we are looking at these drugs from a report by the World Health Organization proving to be so effective in the diseases in the drugs that they are used to make and treat diseases. So if they are effective, so why don't we go for it? They are failing to understand that the government government of Uganda is trying to do this. And then we ask them, can you get addicted to a drug that is given under strict restriction? They don't give us an answer. But we already and clearly told them that working with the Ministry of Health under the NDA, we are going to make sure that there is strict prescription of this drug to the users. It means there will be no cases of overdose, because I only give it under strict restriction. And we believe that there can be no addiction due to this, so that case is watered down. I do believe that we take this case. Thank you.
I love to believe that you've done the best service to the resolution. So, tonight's resolution was, this House supports decriminalization of drugs and implementation of harm reduction strategies. I have dwelt on the word decriminalization because I felt it is fundamentally different from what we got in tonight's resolution. The word decriminalization and the word legislation or legalization are two fundamentally different things. Decriminalization of drugs would entail removal of criminal punishments or penal punishments to persons found either in possession, distribution, or keeping of these drugs. Legalization, on the other hand, would ideally give a free warrant to everyone to use the drugs in whatsoever manner they saw fit. Team Affirmative, I look at you on this, because if you seek decriminalization of the drugs and then you seek to tell it to us in a status quo such as Uganda, And then you even go as saying, you go as far as saying that decriminalization in the medical field, we have to tell you that that's an inconsistency in your status quo and the definition and the resolution itself. Because in the medical field itself, the drugs are not criminal in nature. In fact, the medical personnel use them as prescription drugs. In other words, what is illegal is the medical personnel giving out this drug without a prescription. But having it, they do have it. Now, in case you do not see where I disagree because in the status quo in Uganda, this is already applicable. This is applying. This is what's going on. Meaning these drugs are even being given as painkillers to pregnant mothers or people after birth. You spoke of drugs such as methadone, diclomine. All these drugs are already being used. Meaning, as per decriminalization, it is null and void because they are already not criminal. Are you seeing where I disagree? Now, team negative. I do not credit you on that case except for the last negator, the fourth negator. Because it seemed like you swayed the boat. There is a part, I do not know whether it was a timid strategy or whatsoever, but you seemed to go ahead and argue with whatsoever they are saying. You failed to come and distinguish and say, this is legalization, this is decriminalization, these are the drugs that are already being used. In fact, at an extent, you even went as far as saying, we should make sure that these drugs are not there and look for substitutes. Well, the drugs are already being used. It also shows a lack of understanding of the status quo.
Thank you so much. To begin with, there's a difference between decriminalization and legalization. Decriminalization simply means removing a sanction or removing a punishment. Then legalization means making something acceptable by the law. Now, today's resolution, from the first affirmer to the last affirmer, first negator to the third negator, was all misunderstood. You started now going to the depth of drugs. You are now bringing the perspective of the health issue. Now, what did today's resolution look at? One, team affirmative. We were looking at decriminalization. For example, when we get you using these drugs, for example, with a prescription, we are not just going to incarcerate you. It was more of a resolution that is looking at approaching with rehabilitation instead of the legality part of it. Like, instead of us incarcerating you, why can't we opt for maybe rehabilitation? So, decriminalization by team affirmative, what were you meant to say? That for us as team affirmative, we are not just looking at incarcerating someone. After all, we may incarcerate you and you still come out of prison when you are even worse compared to by the time we imprisoned you. Therefore, what are we going to opt for? We are going to opt for methods like rehabilitation.
Dear debaters, when you are presented with a resolution such as this, I understand because of strategy, you may feel compelled to try and narrow the scope of argument or the parameter or the definition in this kind and the understanding to better your case. There's nothing wrong with that. However, in trying so much to play with the understanding, the ideology, and to narrow it down, you may end up missing something essential. Because if you had looked at this resolution clearly, the word decriminalization on its own would have showed you that there's already a criminal status to something, or there is a reason why they are trying to decriminalize it. Are we together? Now, if we look at the health sector and what you were trying to decriminalize, in this case, for you put it in the sense of people in the health sector, so I'm thinking you're talking of pharmacists, medics, and people like that. There is no illegal status on that. So what are you decriminalizing there? Are we together? That alone would have showed you that the line of action you were taking was leaving out something essential. And that is what led you into debating legalization instead of decriminalization. Now, that notwithstanding, I felt Team Affirmative built a decent case in showing us how much benefit we would have if we went ahead to make medicines of these drugs. You played a very good role in showing us the fact that these narcotics can actually be of great medical purpose. But then, if you're going to advocate for the decriminalization of something like narcotics, you cannot come here and they ask you a question on addiction. A Ministry of Health, you're trying to decriminalize something and you're saying you're looking out for the health of the citizens. And they ask you on addiction and the third, a farmer. Your response was, if they want to get addicted to, you mentioned some drug there by the scientific name, and then you said, that's up to them. Really? Your citizens?
This was a good debate. However, both teams, like the previous judges have said, you did what? You robbed us of a bigger perspective of what? Of this entire resolution. However, most of the judges have spoken about that, and I'm going to give my remarks and my judgment. I made it with whatever you offered us. Now, Team Affirmative, I like your strategy. You were looking at something that is going to favor your side as Team Affirmative. So you decided to look at decriminalization in the health sector as your strategy. However, this entire resolution read, and implementation of harm reduction strategies. What happened to that? Team Affirmative asked you, was it their second speaker and their fourth speaker? The fourth speaker even asked you, are there harm reduction strategies in India? Which was your benchmark? Your benchmark was India. They asked you, are there harm reduction strategies in India? And you answered, yes. So if there are harm reduction strategies in India, then that means decriminalization alone is harmful. So you have the harm reduction what? Strategies. However, apart from that, there were a lot of questions that were left answered. They asked you, yes, with the case that you've been able to give us, who is going to monitor? Who are the people going to receive the drugs and all that? So, basing on whatever you gave us, both teams, that is where I made my judgment from, however much all of you did not fully interpret the resolution. Team Affirmative, your entire strategy was okay. However, and I credit you for that. However, you failed to do what? You failed to rebut their strategy fully, and you left a lot of questions unanswered. And it is at that we were able to make a judgment.
The essence as to why sometimes we set such resolution is not because we want to be unfair. Rather, we have a standardized kind of system that we understand that the students will appreciate and come and deliver in its fullest capacity. I won't indulge more into the interpretation of the resolution, but let me base my judgment on the cross-examination part 1, 2, in the strategies-wise, and 3, on how the points were brought according to you. We had disagreement that at times when it comes to such a situation, judges, we don't mark according to what we think, but we mark according to what you have said. When you become a cross-examiner, you are an agent of the team. Imagine we are in a prosecution case and another prosecutor from the defense advises you, who is the prosecutor of the state. That means the state, you're losing that case in that manner. Because if the witness can advise you, then we have an issue. 2, There are two things called examination in chief and cross-examination. What you did today was entirely based on examination in chief, not cross-examining. And that's why I always use this word, the magician of the game today, who understand all the assignments and brought every kind of an issue to table, made the whole house understand. I told us it's not about just making the judges believe in your case. That's why our resolution sometimes starts with this house. The house is full, not only for judges. The only thing that came into play is the strategy. All of you, content-wise, you have to go and research more. So I gave team affirmative a 69%. Highest mark I've given anyone in this competition, because I'm happy. And a 71% for team negators, totaling up to a 64.8% in average, which, if I'm rounding it off, it's a 65% for team affirmative and a 67.2% for team negators. Is of this, there is a unanimous judgment from the 5 judges. Team negators have the day.